Hey all, Flame here, and welcome back to Slipstream. This is a very special DLC showcase video. I've made it clear on the channel before that I am very fond of this game, so I wanted to return to it to show off all the new goodies that have been added. So, that includes the Blue Hour DLC, which is pretty much the big one. That's the DLC that came out in June last year, which has 5 new tracks. It has 3 new cars and 5 new songs on the soundtrack. And on top of that, I'll also be showing off the Supernova DLC, which is kind of a foil to Blue Hour. It's like a much smaller and more cozy kind of setting. It has 2 new tracks, it has 2 new cars and 2 new songs. But to get us started, I'm going to go into the Grand Prix here. I'm going to start a new one so you don't have to worry about the outtake. I'm going to be using the custom cars setup, which I think might be a new thing since I last played this, but I can't recall exactly. As you can see from the list of tracks there, these are all based on real life locations. So we'll be going through a handful of places you might or might not recognise. The 3 new cars that were added in Blue Hour to start with are the Wellenreiter, the Spectre. Nice to see them using the English spelling of it rather than the American one. And the Wildfire. Out of the 3, I would say personally the Wellenreiter is my favourite design, so I'm going to be using that for this GP. I'm going to be using manual drifting and medium acceleration classes. I will say quite a lot of stuff has changed, so if there's anything that maybe looks different to how you remember it, then that would be why. The game's had a lot of patches, a lot of tweaks, balance adjustments and things like that. When it comes to putting together a build like this, I will say I am not enough of a car person to know what is ideal. So for me, I tend to just try and create something that's all around balanced with similar like numbers on them as much as I can afford. I've got $10 left, so that's what we're rolling with. So we're going to start up and we're going to be going to France. The thing with like French jokes is that I know joking about the French is like the safe edgy kind of humour, but I still personally find it kind of funny. Like, whenever I think of French people, the first person who comes to mind to me is always going to be David Cage. And in particular, that one picture of him with the cast from Beyond Two Souls, where he looks like he's having the time of his life at this panel, and the others are just sitting there like they really do not want to be there. Like they would rather be doing literally anything else with their time other than sitting next to David Cage while he talks about how artistic his work is or whatever the fuck. But yeah, like that's all I really have country-based jokes for out of this lineup from what I recall. So sorry to anyone who's either French or has any French in them, really. Yeah, the general art design of the DLC, something about it feels like it's had a bit of a change. I can't really put my finger on what it is about it that looks different. Maybe it is just because it's based off more identifiable real-life locations, so maybe the more city kind of thing they've got going on makes it look distinct. Although saying that, there were some cities on the base game as well. But either way, it still looks really nice. There's something about just the general art direction here that I like. It's the fact that although it's kind of got recognisable themes, it's still got that level of abstraction to it that was there beforehand. It's still owning the fact that it's like a fantasy pixel art game, and it's all the better for it in my eyes. It's like the track looks nice, the backgrounds look really nice. I don't know if everyone's gonna be too keen on like the buildings being such obvious 3D objects, but for me I think they work as a functional thing. because they make the buildings in the foreground that you've got to worry about crashing into very distinct from the pixel 2D buildings in the background. There's the sort of things where, like, it works as a practical thing. It's very obvious what's foreground that you have to worry about and what's background that you don't. So yeah, like, I quite like it. I really like this art style in general. I like games that have this kind of pixel art look. And the fact that this is so unapologetically an arcade racer. And sort of knows how to win my heart. I am quite far ahead now. If you remember, I think this was around the time when I covered the game on the channel, like I did the LP. Back in the day, this game's balancing was very skewed in favour of the player. You would get situations like this where once you're in the lead, you're in the lead, and the other cars don't stand a chance. Nowadays, since it's had some balancing patches, I want to say that it's less of a guaranteed win, because sometimes the cars will rubber band and sometimes they won't. I'm not entirely sure what triggers it, because like I've had other runs. In fact, the outtake that I had before I started recording this, I got a lead and then they all caught up. So maybe it's still a little bit hit and miss. It's always going to be a difficult thing to get right, balancing difficulty for a racer, because no one likes rubber banding, but rubber banding is kind of a necessary evil. Because when this game first came out, it was basically once you knew how to drift, you had won. Although I still enjoyed playing that because it was fun to just sort of soak in the setting, it did make the gameplay itself a little bit mindless. Whereas nowadays it's like, if you get a run where the rubber banding kicks in, you do have to stay alert. It's just seems very inconsistent as to when it kicks in. But if you close your eyes... I know nothing about Pompeii. But I do know that I really like just the culture that I've seen from Italy that's been fed to me through the internet. You know, like everything about all their big cities. Like, I really like the look of Venice. It's like beautiful with all the buildings above the water and things like that. The track here set in Pompeii, like, it looks really nice. It's obviously going for a very different look to the track we were just in, so it's got a bit more like forestry than we had in the last track. I also really like Italian salami. It's better than Danish salami. I really like prosciutto. I like pizza, I like pasta. Thank you, Italy. I know a lot about your country. I like Mario as well. Just getting it all out of the way. I also like Pokemon X and Y, and I like Rhythm Faith. Wait, no, they're French. What am I talking about? Oh, God. This is why you... It's like, I really do like it when games that have a mostly, like, fantasy look do dip their toes in the real world, because it's like... It tends to focus on the things that are, like, really pretty about those respective countries. Like, right here, I am surprised that they didn't pick Venice for the Italy track. But at the same time, I do appreciate what they've done with this track, so I can't complain either. It's a similar sort of thing, like, I haven't got around to covering the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC on this channel yet, but some of the Mario Kart Tour tracks that they ported over into that did a similar kind of thing, where it's obviously, like, still Mario Kart, but they have levels based on Sydney, they have levels based on London, they have, like, even the Colosseums, the Great Colosseums and whatnot. Roman Colosseums. Oh god, fucking hell. Why do I even fucking talk? Oh. But yeah, like, it's... One thing that I personally always like is I love seeing London represented in video games. So for people who live in other countries, I assume they feel the same way about seeing their respective hometowns or even just their capital cities represented. This time I do have the rubber banding kicking in, as you can see from the fact that I briefly got overtaken by myself. For this kind of game, it's not even a problem. The fact that there's other cars with well, like other racers that are using the same car as me, it just proves they have good taste. Oh, wrong way. Why did I try that? Now I need to catch up with him, because if I don't catch up with him, then like if I let him get too much of a lead, he will have won, because obviously I don't have rubber banding powers. I have to get to the front through skill. And naturally... Well, you've seen me play enough racing games on this channel over the years. I think it kind of speaks for itself. But this is also something about this game that, going back to it, I'm really happy about, because I can just sit back and soak in the mood in pretty much any track in this entire game. Whether that be the ones in this DLC, whether that be the ones that were like loosely based on Sonic levels in the base game, or the ones that were more fantastical in the base game, what have you. There's a lot of tracks here that just have good vibes. There, I only came second there. I was close. God damn it, Ross Eldridge. I'm still ahead of you by a little bit. But yeah, the benefits of winning or disadvantages of losing, depending on how you look at it, is that the higher up you get in the ranking, the more money you get to boost your car here. So the people who are at the front get the best car builds. Whether that's balanced or not is up to you. I suppose it's always going to be a debate of, do you reward people who do well, or do you try to keep everything balanced all the way through? I think this works. At least personally, but Transylvania is kind of like the obvious pick, I would say, for Romania. It's not quite Halloween at the time of recording this, but when you look at the aesthetic they're going for here, with like the bare trees and the castles, yeah, they're going for a kind of horror vibe here, which, when you think of Transylvania, that's kind of what comes to mind. I do need to get that lead, because they can get a good lead ahead of you as well as like dropping behind you. I'm trying not to take my eyes off the road here, but when I look at the amount of detail in that castle in the background there, it is absolutely gorgeous. It's so cleverly done. Again, I'm talking about the art design again, but Anstor knows what he's doing when it comes to pixel art. And again, I do want to emphasise that this is free DLC, and when the free DLC expansion has just as much production value as like the, I guess on disc, even though it's like a digital download, when the DLC expansion is just as polished as the like regular tracks, that proves that the developer here absolutely loves what they're doing. It's like the definition of a game being soulful, you know? It's got that extra degree of, I guess, childlike wonder, the fact that there's such a love of making games and trying to make the game the best it possibly can be. And the fact that the second DLC that I'm going to be covering today released 10 years after Anstor started working on the game, it's obviously a passion project, doesn't even begin to describe it, you know? It's very easy to be cynical about the games industry because sometimes very bad things happen. But there's also a lot of excellent, very talented people in this industry, and I really like having this opportunity to give these people a showcase to show off their work. Now, where is this guy ahead of me? He's nearly 200 miles ahead of me. He might have already won. Like, look, even the torches just then around the edge of the track. All the little things that make up like a good Transylvania track. Like, I can see the numbers at the bottom. I shouldn't have looked at the numbers because now like I lost the advantage I had and now I'm back in third. But I do get tempted to look over at the numbers because that shows you just how badly you're getting owned. I don't mind second. I don't really want to do worse than second here. Come on, where's the end of the track? I know it's coming. I don't want to get twatted by anything before then. Yeah, this track's a little bit longer than I remembered it being, but there's something else I can say about Slipstream. The fact that these tracks are very meaty tracks. There's a lot of like twists and turns that make them distinct, even if on like a surface level, you know, you've got a similar kind of design philosophy behind them. And the fact that there's 4 laps in the standard Grand Prix is kind of unusual as well. A lot of games will cap it at 3, but that's also something that you can change when you just go to like a standard single race. Again, I'm going to try and balance it all out. Okay. Tyres get a little bit of a lead, but hey, I'll save that $28 for later. Okay, Andalusia now. We're going to Spain. Spain is a country that I've been to a few times over the years. Like, it was one of the places that my folks would usually take me on holiday when I was a child. I'm not much of a holiday person, so my own personal experiences with Spain have not really been that exciting. I feel like if I were to travel abroad now, I'll probably want it to be just like I'll go away to clear my head kind of thing, rather than to be a tourist. And that's why the places that just look pretty are kind of appealing to me. And just whenever I think of like media that shows off other countries that are usually touristy spots, it's like the more out of the way areas are the ones that I would like. A lot of it comes down to anxiety. I don't really like travelling in general, but like if I were to travel, it would be you know, I want to be on my own. I want to be away from the like everything else, and I just need to, you know, not think about everything that's happening at home, you know. It's something that if there's one piece of media that kind of illustrates the kind of mentality I have towards it, it's the Billy Joel song Vienna. Just about like, at least from my interpretation of the lyrics, kind of like going to Vienna just to kind of clear your head for a few days, just to like take a bit of time away from work and not have to worry about like your typical day-to-day stuff. Naturally, I could be reading that completely wrong, but Vienna's another place that does sound kind of chill. in general, like a lot of European countries do. Because it's that sort of situation where the culture there is kind of similar to the UK, but like a little bit different, you know, like there's a few things there that are just a little bit different to how things work here at home. And so like you get to experience something new without being completely out of your depth. And that's the sort of thing that I would want to kind of read up on before I went anywhere, because I don't want to be that guy. No one likes obvious tourists. No one likes the guy who shows up and makes no attempt to fit in. You know, when in Rome, do as the Romans and all that. Talking about the visuals here, this track does some really interesting things with the colours, because there's a lot of turquoises which are making turquoise work. I realise there's an irony talking about this when I intentionally picked the turquoise car, but turquoise is the kind of colour that needs to be balanced well against other things, otherwise it will become a bit garish. It'll feel a bit uncanny sometimes if there's too much turquoise on screen. But you saw the turquoise buildings kind of contrasting against the pink buildings, and also contrasting against the brown in the background. So it's like a little bit of subtlety there. I really like that use of colour. I'm also getting a pretty decent lead here, 120 metres. Is that metres or miles? I think I said miles in the last track. I'm not sure. Yeah, that should hopefully give me a bit of a safe lead ahead where I was, because I was sort of dropping back a little bit, but now I'm 32 and... Oh, Ross Eldridge, the guy I was worried about, he's way dropped down, so I ain't gonna complain about that. Alright, so we've got another 5 grand to work with. Let's buff everything up. Alright, so that should do us for the final track, Edinburgh. This one's a little bit closer to home. I reckon I could fit in alright in Scotland. There's a really nice background at the start here. I don't know, is that meant to be a clock tower there? Because it's kind of got the same shape to it as a clock tower. I don't know much about Edinburgh myself. Like, again, going back to the idea of I'm more interested in like the out of the way places of foreign countries. I would like to just soak in the mood of somewhere like, say, the Mullakintyre. The music video from the Wingsong Mullakintyre, it's cold, it's away from the world, and it's just, you would just shut yourself in that house and be fine, you know, like just be comfy, be in your own space and not have to worry about anything. That's my romanticised image of it anyway. But when I look at that kind of environment, I can see why Paul McCartney kind of cooped himself up there when all the shit was going down back home with the Beatles. It's like, that's your home away from home. This one's got a more reserved kind of colour grading going on. There's a lot of this yellow, which in some situations can look a bit rough. Like, yellow's the kind of colour you gotta use sparingly unless you really know what you're doing. Otherwise you end up with like the whole piss stain thing going on from that one Sonic Forces level. That's forever going to be my go-to example of why colour grading is important, because that level does not look nice. Was it like Sunset something, I want to say? But no, here it's done pretty well. The fact that it's like set in the evening as well, so which kind of justifies it, and that works out nicely, I'd say. Come on, I want to overtake you, but I also don't want to crash into your bumper. This will do. I thought I was going to have to ride his Slipstream there, but no. I managed to do it all by myself. But with any luck, I'll be able to get a decent distance ahead. Oh no, he's rubber banding already. Oh. I do feel like the balancing changes over time do kind of open up a bit of an interesting conversation about games that kind of change post-release. Because like, it's one thing when it is just adding content, like adding new tracks, adding new cars and what have you. But the thing is, I did have a little look through the Steam forum for this game. Some of the changes when it comes to the balancing do have a bit of controversy. There's some people who are really not keen on the rubber banding. And it's like, I understand why the rubber band is there. I think I went over this earlier, but like, I also do feel like it's a difficult thing to decide if I'm okay with on principle. The idea of games drastically changing post-release. Oh, I'm way ahead of him now. Like, he kind of gave up on rubber banding there. It looked like he got closer than he did. I think with Steam, if you want to, I think you can download the older versions. But naturally, that's going to shut you off from multiplayer. And for multiplayer heavy games, it's a question you have to ask if you're okay with the game potentially changing. But yeah, I came overall first in the season there. And I got the Blue Hour Cup. Overall, I really do like that set of tracks there. It's been a while since I've played through the GPs themselves for the other courses, so I can't really say whether it's like my favourite cup or how it stacks up. But on the whole, it's a good cup. There's some good new tracks. But I did say there were 2 DLC packs, didn't I? So let's take a look at the other options we have here. These, since there's only 2 courses, they didn't include these in a GP, but they have added them to the bottom of the list here. Once you get past all the Blue Hour ones, you get Lakeside Woods Part 1, Lakeside Woods Part 2, and we're going to do both of them, because although they share a name, they are quite radically different from one another. Going to keep all the default settings there. And for the Supernova DLC, we get 2 new cars, which are the Mongrel and the Portobello. I'm going to be playing through both. There's 2 tracks and 2 new cars here, so we might as well show them both off. I'll start with the Mongrel for this one, I reckon. But the way you get access to the Supernova DLC, this works a little bit differently, because the other big update that came along with this expansion, and I believe Ansdor said it's the final major update to Slipstream before he starts working on other projects, but that is this game's entry into the Steam Workshop. And Supernova is his demo example of what you can do. So instead of downloading this from the store page, you go into the Steam Workshop and you download it. There's an announcement that Ansel put out, so you can easily find it. But that's going to be interesting, because although this is the final official expansion, now it's on the Steam Workshop, there's nothing stopping other people from adding their own new tracks, new cars. There's a handful of new cars already. It's like, if people start making new tracks, that's when it'll probably catch my interest. And who knows, maybe I'll come back to it on the channel if any interesting additions pop up, we'll see. But yeah, these two had a bit of a different design philosophy, and so I said something along the lines of, while the Blue Hour tracks were kind of a formal expansion, these are more just going camping in the forest kind of thing. And it shows, it's a very comfy kind of track. It's obviously much more fantastical, you got more of a Mushroom Hill kind of thing going on here, as opposed to like trying to recreate a real life city. You can, well, you can serve your purpose by being a Slipstream, and then you can let me overtake you. But yeah, the more I look at it, the more it is just basically Mushroom Hill. But like Mushroom Hill, I prefer the more autumn kind of section than the summer section though, so I mean this does the like brighter daylight kind of thing better, I would say. I'm not gonna win, I don't think, but if I can hold this third, that would be nice. I never claimed I would win these. That's my get out of jail free card. Did the game just crash? No, that's strange. I haven't had that happen before, but and it looked like he was just driving through trees there. I don't know, like, maybe that's just a one-off glitch, because I hadn't seen that happen before. But yeah, that did actually happen in-game, that wasn't just like a recording thing. I'm not sure why the music was cutting out there either, but... Well, it fixed itself, so I'll roll with it. I'm not going to restart over that, but... Yeah, that's kind of a glitch I haven't seen before in this game. The other guy's miles ahead of me, I don't stand a chance with him. Well, if he wants to slow down, I did see him briefly there. Well, despite everything, I managed to hold a second. And that was unusual though, I haven't seen that particular glitch before, and it just kind of flashed off and then flashed back on. Which is strange. I don't know, like, it might be because it's like bonus content, it might just be a weird quirk because I've got the recording going, but it didn't happen when I was recording for my FC playthroughs run, but hey. Enough of that though. Lakeside Woods Part 2. Come to the same default settings. Once I finish flexing all these cool cars I have to hand, we're gonna go in the Portobello. This thing does not look like I should be able to race in it, and it looks like it should be a lot clunkier than it actually is. And that at the start there, that just made me double guess myself after the glitch in the last run, because this game, I think the music direction in general here, I like the fact that you can hear the driver like stopping to switch the tapes rather than having it looping or whatever. So like, that, in context of what's happening, it is a really nice feature, it's a nice little touch. But when you're worrying about if it's just cut out or not, there's an extra thing to think about there. I don't do live LPs that often, so I'm not really used to handling the unexpected. But what I am appreciative of is these sections where it gets really dark and you can occasionally see things glowing, like you see the glowing mushrooms around the side there. God, that's pretty. I'm getting a little bit Mystic Cave vibes here from Sonic Drift 2. I'm probably the only person in the world who would immediately think of Sonic Drift 2 when comparing racing games, but the Sonic Drift games are actually genuinely really fun races, and I say this with no irony at all, that I do earnestly recommend them. Because like, they're simple, and they're on the Game Gear, so they're technically limited, but man, just as fun little races, they're well worth a shot. I really should try playing some more classic races. I know one of the big comparisons that people make with this game was to Outrun. And like, there's a fucking bajillion different Outrun games, but I've only ever really played the first one, and I think briefly I want to say 2016 it's called. Like, it's not a game released in 2016, but it was like set in the far off distant future of 2016. Like, I remember playing a bit of those, but I didn't get on with them quite as well as I do with this game. This game's like a much more polished up take. And with this game, I like that the main meat of them that you can like sink yourself into are the GPs. Because I prefer that to the sort of branching pathways from the Grand Tour, which is more of an outrun kind of thing in general. Alright, let's see if I can hold this first to cross the final lap. I hope I can, but we shall see. I'm just distracted by the mushrooms, because experience has taught me to investigate anything that glows. Yeah, since I'm on the last lap now, I suppose I probably should like start summing up my overall thoughts on the DLC. Which, if it's not immediately obvious, I think what's on offer here is great. Like Blue Hour in particular, Blue Hour is like a really polished up set of courses. There's not a single weak link among any of these DLC tracks, but Blue Hour has the style, whereas this is like, Supernova is more the little bonus bit of content, and like, I still definitely appreciate both. But, you know, like, it's just a good offering on the whole. And I really appreciate what Ansdor has done with Slipstream on the whole. It's a fantastic package. It's on, I think, all consoles now. It's definitely on Xbox, and I think there's a Switch version, so there's a lot of ways to play it. But yeah, like, that's all I can really say. If it's not immediately obvious, my takeaway from this game and this DLC coverage and just all of my coverage of Slipstream over the last few years is go play Slipstream. But there we go, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I've been the Flameclaw, and I'll see you next time for another video. Bye bye for now.